Hey, I'm Steven here with Tiny House Listings, and today I thought I'd bring you along with a project I'm working on here, my little backyard man cave, which I've appropriately titled, dubbed the Tan Cave, because it gets a lot of light, and the summer's going to get a lot of light. We built this here this past November with my good friend Derek Diedrichsen from RelaxShacks.com. He actually designed this, and we had some students come along at a workshop, and they built this, and now I'm just going through doing all the final touches, knocking out projects, trying to get it to where it's ready. So stay tuned. So when we had the workshop, we had a couple of really nasty, muddy days, and the backyard that this is built in, which is my backyard, got really, really slushy, and the traffic coming in and out made it, the plywood flooring, which I originally planned to just polyurethane a couple coats and make it look just kind of semi-unfinished, but that didn't work. So then I put down this paint. I rolled this paint on, hoping that it would look okay, and I just don't like the way it looks. I just wasn't happy. So instead I went through and bought some lumber, which I'll show you guys in a second. And I think it's going to be a really easy process, and like I said, I'm going to take you guys along, so stay tuned. So this is the flooring that we'll be putting in into the tan cave. It's raw wood. It's not treated or anything. I actually got it from from Lumber Liquidators. It was $1.19 a square foot, and it's pine. As you can see, there's knots in it. It's not the most beautiful stuff, but then again, we're only putting it in a backyard shed, and actually I kind of tend to like the character that the knots and stuff like that give. But it's 3/4 inch, and it's tongue and groove, which means we'll be able to just kind of tap it together. So first step we're going to do is put down some padding beneath this to make sure that it's soundproof and moisture proof. So while I'm over here working on my tiny 72 square foot setup, just across the street these guys are working on a huge McMansion. The irony. All right, we got the padding down. The next step is to actually start putting the wood on top. I liked it to have this stuff shipped to me because it was pretty reasonable. I think all of it was shipped for like 35 bucks. And the closest Lumber Liquidators for me is actually an hour away. So we do the gas and time, it didn't make sense to actually go pick it up. And so far, by the way it looks, I'm happy. So let's get to work putting this stuff down. So now I've just got the boards up here on the miter saw, measuring things out. This is going to be a really easy build because these come in 6-foot lengths, and as I'm staggering them, I can put a piece of board down and not have to cut it all. And the building's 12 feet long, and when you take away the 2 studs on both ends, it's roughly 6.5 feet, a little less. And so I'll just cut off this amount and then start at the other end and then put down a full piece and stagger it. So it's going to be really easy. And the good thing about this hardwood flooring as opposed to laminate is you can tack it down to make sure it's even sturdier. So just to show you what I was saying before, now that we've come to the end of this, which this piece is cut, now we can take a full length board without making any cuts and come right down on this end to stagger it. And as you can see, the way this tongue and groove's cut, when it's put together, it's a really tight joint, so you don't have to worry about stuff getting down in there like, I don't know, stuff. I thought I'd mention real quick, before you cut the pieces that you have to cut to length, take a look at your board and look. Make sure you cut off the bad end, because this is a good example. I didn't need this part of the board. Well, I could have cut down here as well, but I decided to cut down here to avoid having that in the flooring, which looks pretty awful. For a project like this, it's pretty important to have a miter saw as opposed to having a circular saw and making a mark and trying to do cuts with that, because where this cut is, it's going to join up with another piece of wood, and you want that to be a nice straight line. It's about 30 degrees outside, and as you can see, this part of the wall isn't even framed up. I got everything, all the windows closed and everything. But just with this little ceramic heater, it's about 100 degrees in here. Maybe not 100, but it feels like it. This is what I meant earlier when I was talking about staggering the joints. It just looks a little bit better than cutting each to length and all of them being the same all the way down. Making progress. So once you get to the end, you'll have, most likely, unless if you're super lucky, you'll have just a fraction of a piece remaining. And so what you'll have to do is you'll have to take measurements. I recommend one down on this end and one on that end of the board, and take a measurement and then make marks on the board. And I'll show you here in a second what I've done. So I took marks on this end of the board, that end of the board, and I made a line all the way down, and now I'm just going through ripping it with this circular saw. So when you get to the end down here, there's going to be a gap, and the reason for that is that you have to literally accommodate enough room to put this in an angle for the tongue here in the groove to butt together at an angle and then slide it down, and that's where you get that gap. But that's no big deal. You'll have to come back later and put some trim around it. All right, so we got all the flooring in for the day. I think it looks pretty darn good myself. The next steps are we're going to put some trim down along the edges, make the edges pretty, and then we're going to polyurethane the floor. But I think for the day we're going to call it quits. You can actually see where the guys who delivered the wood actually stepped on the wood and created some issues, and then there's some stickers that won't come off and that type of thing. So I'm going to go through and sand it before we put polyurethane on. So I got these little 3-foot sections of 3/8 inch square dowels, and I'm just going to use those for the trim. On the back wall, the gaps are a little bit larger, so I think we'll use 1/2 inch for that. But I think it'll look good. What we'll do now is we'll polyurethane these, and while they're drying, we'll start doing the floor. Okay, we got a coat of polyurethane on those. Next, we're going to move on to the inside while those are drying. All right, so this is what the floor looks like before a coat of polyurethane. And this is what it looks like after. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but it's already kind of starting to sink in a little bit, which means it's obviously going to need another coat, or maybe even a third. Just want to show you that. I think we're going to cut off for the day and meet you guys back here tomorrow. Alright, so there's the finished product. We ended up going with 2 coats of polyurethane to give it a little bit of extra strength and durability. Total price of this whole project was about $160, including the trim, the flooring, the shipping. The polyurethane would probably cost you about $20. I already had some. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video.